Hello and welcome to the Hyrulean Chronicles, a podcast from the Play Talk Repeat crew where we review and go in depth on the story of the entire Legend of Zelda timeline. I'm Oliver and I'm joined by Lewis and Alex.
Hello.
Hello.
So this episode we're continuing to go down the Fallen Hero timeline with Link's Awakening, which was originally released in 1993 on the Game Boy and then remade for the Nintendo Switch in 2019. I believe we've all played the remake, right?
Yes.
None of us have gone back and played the Game Boy one. Okay. So there's some contention on whether this comes first in the timeline or the Oracle games, which we've already done. But however, I think in the context of this story, it doesn't really matter. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, nothing ever really matters, you know. The universe is infinite and we're all going to die eventually. But this really doesn't matter. So, but I personally think that this game comes after, as in the end of Oracle of Ages, Link departs on a boat, and at the beginning of this game, as you can see behind me, Link awakens on a boat. So, it all makes sense to me. So, with that in mind, there's no story between the Oracle games and Link's Awakening, as they are one right after the other. So we'll go straight into opening statements, please, Lewis. Brief summary, and a score. You can make your score brief if you want as well.
Okay, so this game right here is my favorite 2D Zelda game so far, and I think it's going to be my favorite one, considering the rest of the games. I don't know if it's due to the being remade and it looking so good and feeling so good, or just the story of the game in general. But I found all the dungeons, for the most part, to be incredibly fun. The game didn't hold your hand too much, but it also didn't take the piss with just making the player run around not knowing what they're doing. And I don't know, just everything about the game I think is just done very, very well, and I think it's just a great Zelda game. So I'm gonna give it a big fat 8.
Oh, big fat 8. Alex?
Decent. Yeah, probably one of my it's up there for 2D Zeldas, I think. It's probably top 3, I think. How many have we played so far? 2D Zeldas? 5?
A fair few.
5? Yeah, I think
5?
5.
Yeah, definitely top 3, I think. Maybe top 2. Yeah, I really liked all the dungeons. I think it was very well paced in between dungeons. It wasn't straight to the next dungeon, and it wasn't here's a very long drawn out in between each dungeon. I felt like in between each dungeon was a perfect amount of time for me to get ready for the next dungeon. I give it a 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay, great. So, going off from what Lewis said about this being his favorite 2D Zelda. So if it's difficult because we're playing these quite ahead of time, so I've already played the next few ones that we're going to record. But in terms of the order in which we're doing them, this is my favorite 2D Zelda as well. If that makes sense.
It makes sense.
Is Oliver lagging to you? Or
yeah, he lagged a bit for me then.
Oh, it was more than a bit for me. I didn't know what you said at all.
Right, that's fine. Try not to worry about it too much because it's not lagging for me. That's the main thing, and it's recording.
No, it's more that I couldn't respond to what you were saying because
he said in order of timeline.
Yeah,
this is his favorite so far.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, that we played.
Up until now, this is his favorite.
Yes,
that makes sense.
Exactly.
So a game that comes after this is his favorite. Is what you're saying?
Maybe. Who knows?
Who knows?
We'll find out. So speaking specifically about the remake is really, really good. They've made it a hell of a lot more bearable to play than the Game Boy one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And in terms of the overall game, it doesn't drag, which I think at this point, when we've played this many Zelda games, that in itself is a magical thing where the game doesn't drag and you actually really do enjoy it, even though we're playing the very similar games over and over again. I think it's more than what we can ask. Welcome. Yeah. So
much as I don't, sorry, just real quick. As much as I don't like to say that just because a game looks old it ruins my experience of it, but I genuinely think this being remade has done wonders for the game. Comparing this to Oracle of Seasons of Oracle of Ages, even though I really enjoyed those games, the whole graphical overhaul and just the way this game plays, the way it plays like a modern game now, I think just works really, really well in its favor, and I'm 100% certain that added to the enjoyment a ton. I feel like if we played the Game Boy version of this game, I don't think would be saying the same thing at all, because I think just even maneuvering around the map and just getting around would have been such a chore in the original game that I think everyone would have just hated it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah, it was just a really good time. I honestly want to see more games remade like this, just in this style, because I think it just works very, very well.
Yeah, so as soon as I finished playing this the first time, I thought I really hope they do the similar thing for A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
I still hope that now, to be honest with you, because it might make it a little bit better. But yeah, no, I agree.
Terrible.
Like the way something looks, it doesn't. Like it shouldn't change the way. Like I mean, the Oracle games, we really enjoyed the Oracle games, and those were on Game Boy Color, so it's not a 1-to-1 like ratio. But yeah. So speaking of graphics, so graphically, what did we think of the game?
I think honestly, when I first saw it years ago, because this came in like 2019, I remember seeing it for the first time and be like, why did they choose the art style for it?
Yeah.
I assume we could talk about story spoilers in this,
Yeah.
can't we?
Yeah, you go for it. It's been out for a few years.
Obviously, the main theme of the game is that it all takes place in a dream and it's a memory that doesn't really exist. So once I found that out, the whole art style makes perfect sense to me in my head. Like, it matches it perfectly.
Yeah.
Originally, I was just like, that's an odd art style to choose, but I kind of vibed with it. I wasn't like a huge fan of it. But I think they did a really good job of linking it to like the actual context of the game, and I think they chose an art style that not only fits the game, but I think will never age. I think this is like perfect looking when it comes to like an art style for a Zelda game.
Yeah.
And I don't see any way in the future how any game honestly can look better than this. I feel like this is peak 2D Zelda unless they go back to the whole like pixel art style of things. I feel like in a 3D format, this is the best the 2D Zelda game is ever going to look.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I don't really think they can like outdo that.
But look how cute he is. He's a little toy.
He is. He's incredibly cute.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that's what it's supposed to look like a toy-like quality, isn't it? Like very shiny and plasticky. Alex, anything to add?
Not really. Lewis pretty much just said everything I wanted to say. So
yeah,
banging.
Looks like a toy. Gives off that dream-like quality. What the game was actually going for. Great.
Exactly how I wanted it.
So, have we got any glaring issues with the game? Now, I know that I know for a fact that you two are going to have some. They'll be the exact same as me. So, Alex, hit me with them.
The game lags a lot.
It runs like shit. I
Yeah,
don't know why.
I was really confused then. I was like, I can't think of anything glaring. Oh no, but yeah, the lag was horrendous.
Yeah, and it's constant as well. There's no, it never stops. Whether you're playing in handheld or through the dock, the game constantly has frame rate drops, like constantly.
Yeah, wild. Because you compare this to like Breath of the Wild, and Breath of the Wild is like
runs like butter.
It runs like butter.
Yeah.
It was made for the Switch, but this game was made 2 years after, and it's a much like lower scale like game compared to Breath of the Wild, and it runs like shit. I don't get it.
And the worst part is this has now been out for what 3 years, and they've not fixed it.
3 years now.
Yeah, and they haven't patched it.
They haven't patched it, and it's still running like this. Like, it's not enough to completely take away from your enjoyment of it, but it's fucking noticeable.
It's the thing as well is that I know the company that made it, which is Grezzo. They also made the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and Luigi's Mansion. And Luigi's
Mansion runs like shit though.
Oh, does it on the DS?
Yeah,
does not run good.
Yeah, it runs like shit.
I was gonna say I know Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time run really well on the DS. Yeah. And they got that working on a DS, so I would have thought anything they did on the Switch would have been incredibly easy for them, but apparently not. I'll give them a bit of like leeway because at the end of the day, it is just, and it's not a first party. Like Nintendo doesn't own Grezzo, do they? I assume.
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay, well, I'm going to assume they don't have that much money, so they probably did well with what they had, but I still don't think there's much excuse for how horrendous it lags pretty much any time you're outside of a dungeon. When you're going between towns, or if there's a lot of grass and a lot of enemies, the game just like comes to a halt for like no reason.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it either. You can't stop it. You just sort of have to accept that it's running at like 2 FPS, and then just sort of chug your way forward. And it did take away from the experience a lot of the time, I can't lie, because like it wasn't something subtle. Like it would be lasting lag that would last a couple of seconds, and your game, like I said, would completely come to a halt. So yeah, it definitely hindered the experience a lot. It made it very annoying to just travel around really.
Yeah. Also, one more thing. So, did anyone else find it very jarring that you can only travel in 8 directions?
Yeah, I brought this up to Alex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange.
Because Pokemon X and Y did the exact same thing. It introduced the analog stick, and then decides we're going to give you the analog stick, but we're going to basically make it work as a D-pad. And at that point, why not just let me use the D-pad? Like, it feels so uncomfortable to be moving an analog stick in like a complete 360, but it's only moving at certain points. Like, it feels terrible to play, and it took me about an hour to get used to it. I don't know why they decided to do it like that, because the D-pad wasn't even used for anything, was it, in the game?
No.
So like what? So why not just let me use the D-pad then? It makes no sense. I kind of understand coming from like a gameplay and design perspective of making it match the original one, because obviously the floors are laid out as if you were using a D-pad and you can only move in those directions.
Yeah.
But they remade it so that wasn't a factor anymore. So I don't know. I guess it was maybe to prevent like certain glitches and stuff from being done.
I mean, maybe, but it's just like Link Between Worlds, which came out 2 years before this. Well, 2 years before the remake. That has full control of the analog.
The main thing I'd argue is they got
Worlds.
to design that from the ground up, though, so they could design all the levels in mind with you being able to move anywhere. Since
Link
those were
Between Worlds
taken...
came out in like 2013, Oliver.
Did it? All right. I've got 2017 in my head for some reason.
But yeah, since to be fair, I don't know how accurate of a remake is this, but I assume most of the levels and stuff are taken one for one. Yeah, I assume it was to stop a lot of glitches and stuff from maybe being able to be done if you were allowed to just move in every single direction. There's probably some stuff you'd be able to manipulate, I guess. Does anyone know how accurate this is, the remake? Do you know how much stuff was changed?
It's pretty accurate.
I've seen comparisons, yeah, and it looks.
Yeah, I think they added more seashells in. I'm trying to think what else they might have done.
Well, they
Obviously,
added the whole...
this is the third like thing of this game, because they already remade it once for the Game Boy Color, adding the Color Dungeon, and then they remade it again for Switch. I don't know if you knew that.
Okay.
Oh yes, the Color Dungeon, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
makes
but
sense.
I mean, is there any massive issues?
For me, there's a couple of dud dungeons for me, but we'll get to that when we get to it. So we'll get into the actual story of the game. So beware, there are spoilers at this point. So, while traveling the sea, Link comes across a terrible storm. His boat sinks and he awakens washed ashore on Koholint Island. Anyone else want to help me pronounce that? Koholint. He is rescued by a young woman called Marin. As Link traverses the island and learns more about its inhabitants, they all share the same opinion. There is nothing beyond the sea. How strange. Link learns that the only way to leave the island is to wake the windfish, which is currently slumbering in an egg atop Mount Tamaranch. In order to wake said windfish, Link must travel the land of Koholint and conquer, you guessed it, 8 dungeons, each of which holds an instrument of the siren. Link journeys to the top of Mount Tamaranch, instruments in hand, and plays the Ballad of the Windfish, taught to him by Marin. This cracks open the egg and Link steps inside. Inside the egg, Link fights the Nightmare. Upon the Nightmare's defeat, it reveals that the island and all its inhabitants are just the dream of the Windfish, and if he awakes, then the island would cease to exist. With the Windfish awake, Link himself wakes in the middle of the open seas, adrift on a piece of driftwood. So it was all a dream. Whose dream? Was it the Windfish's dream? Was it Link's dream? I don't fucking know.
Is it the Seagull's dream?
It could be anyone's dream.
You spoiled that for me as well, Oliver. I was very sad.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the story of the game until about 5 dungeons in, and I remembered you spoiled it the other day, and then I was like,
that's your fault for remembering.
It's literally not my fault in the slightest.
It's your fault, Oliver.
I've realised when I'm writing these notes, I really need to practice these words before I say them, because that was the first time that I've ever said out loud Koholint or Tamaranch.
Yeah, Tamaranch wasn't that bad.
Well, in my head, as I was writing it down, it was Tamaranch. So as I was reading it out loud, it made sense to say Tamaranch. So what do you think of the story then, besides me spoiling it, Lewis?
I genuinely thought this, out of all the stories we've had so far, this was probably one of the best ones. I think it's a really good message. And I think for a Nintendo game especially, it is quite dark and sad. All the other stories, for the most part, are just a rehash of the same thing, but just done slightly differently. And I feel like this is the first time in the 2D ones that we've seen like a big leap in actually trying something new. And I think overall, just the whole freshness of it and the whole message of the story, I just think it was a really good time overall. Like, genuinely, when I saw the ending, I actually felt something like, damn, that's quite sad. And coming from the other games where I finish it and feel nothing, that's like a huge bonus for me. So yeah, I don't know. I thought the story was really, really good. I had a good time with it.
Yeah,
Aside from getting spoiled.
No, I agree. It was unique, wasn't it? It was very unique.
Yeah, very unique.
There's a reason that this game kind of has a cult following, even amongst like Zelda fans.
Yeah.
Like Link's Awakening is a lot of people's like #1 Zelda game for this reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, a game has to do something special to be a Game Boy game and still be your favorite game out of all the games that have come after it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I like the way there's like Mario enemies and stuff on the island.
Oh yeah,
Well, yeah, because it's a dream.
It's a dream.
I was gonna
yeah.
say, were they in
That's
the
what I mean.
original game? All those.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
were in
yeah.
the original.
They're all there.
Oh wow, okay.
Goombas, chain jumps, all that. They're all there. Have you anything to add from on the
YouTube.
story, Alex?
No, just agree with Lewis that I really enjoyed it. It's very unique for a Zelda game. Like you wouldn't have expected it like when you were younger playing this. Like, oh, this is actually all a dream. This is crazy.
Yeah, if you played this as a kid, I think that would have been mind blowing. I think
Yeah.
that would have been incredible.
Probably mind blowing for you now if it didn't spoil it.
No, yeah. Spoil it.
Apologies.
Crazy.
Right, so we'll move on to favorite and least favorite dungeon. God, we are blasting through this today. So, favorite and least favorite dungeon and why, Alex?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot here.
It's almost if
I
we do this
really
every
liked-
single time.
I really liked the Eagle's Tower. I thought that was a really unique take on the like how you actually accomplish the dungeon, with the fact how you have to pick up the wrecking ball and like actually essentially
yeah.
just bring the level down. I really liked that. It took a while for me to like remember about like the wrecking ball, because I was like, why is there this wrecking ball on the map? And then I remember these pillars and you had to knock them down. Yeah, I really like that, and I really like the boss as well, even though it was really easy. Least favorite.
You say really easy. Were any of the bosses in this game particularly hard? I
No,
don't
they
think so,
weren't.
really. Yeah.
The nightmare that has some scary points in it. To be fair.
Yeah, the nightmare. Honestly,
very easy.
I did die, but I got revived because I had the.
Fair.
Oh yeah, the fairy.
Yeah.
I don't know for least favorite. I don't know if there was any that was like really, really bad. Maybe the Angler's Tunnel, because it's water. A lot of water sections having to travel between it. That's like the only one that I thought was like really bad. Other than that, I really liked all of them. Like there wasn't one that was like really bad.
I fundamentally disagree, but we'll come to Lewis first.
Okay.
Right, my favorite one was actually Turtle Rock.
Oh.
I liked how non-linear Turtle Rock was, and you could legit pretty much tackle it from any angle you possibly could. Like the thing is with most Zelda dungeons, they all play like this: is there's specific rooms you have to go to get certain keys, otherwise you're not getting to a certain point. Like it's just not possible. But this dungeon actually lets you tackle it from pretty much like any part of the dungeon, and you can pretty much go to any room you want and still make it to the end. A negative of that is that it can get you kind of lost, because you can end up going to a bunch of rooms that don't mean anything, and it's just kind of pointless. But I just liked that freedom, and I also liked the aesthetic of the whole dungeon. I thought it was very, very fun. My least favorite dungeon was probably the Angler's Tunnel or the Key Cavern. I didn't like a lot of the puzzles in Angler's Tunnel. I thought it was, I don't know. I thought it was very bland looking, because it was just very grey, and it was just very grey, and it was a lot of running back and forward. I didn't overly like any of the water aspects of it either. Luckily, there weren't any like hugely water focused dungeons in this game, which was like a huge plus for me. Because I really don't enjoy any of the water levels in any of these games. But yeah, I thought in Angler's Tunnel specifically, there was just a lot of going back and forward, and a lot of me accidentally not doing something in a certain room and having to run all the way back, and it just got very, very annoying. I also thought the boss was incredibly boring. And by far the easiest boss in the game. It lasted a whole like 6 seconds, and it just was incredibly short and just not fun. I do want to point something out though from the gameplay. and I'm going to compare this to the other games again, because this is the first time we've been able to do this, I think. Obviously, in all the old Zelda games, they all had the issues of the having to choose your items from the inventory and switch them out. And as a result of that, in all these Zelda games we played so far, I've not used the shield like a single time. In this game, I got to use the shield like properly, and I had so much fun with it because it was just on a button, and I used it so much throughout the entire game. And I've never had that experience with the shield in any of these games so far because I never equip it because I can't be asked because I don't want it wasting a slot. And I don't know, I just can't say like how much of a refreshing feeling it was to be able to actually block stuff and reflect stuff. I feel like
you
added,
had to use it.
Yeah.
In, like,
yeah.
parts.
I'm not sure if that's the case in the original Link's Awakening though, because I know I think in the original Link's Awakening the Pegasus boots are an item. It's not something. That's
it is.
So I'm assuming the shield is something you have to equip as well.
Shield is an item as well, so you'd have to swap it out. Like
it's just so nice.
The Oracle games.
I never get to use the shield because I don't want to waste the slot, and I got to use it, and it was fun. And it made combat so much nicer.
Yeah, it's almost compulsory in the combat in this game to use the shield because you need to stagger enemies and stuff. So, my favorite and least favorite dungeon. Thank you for asking. So my favorite was probably the face shrine. I like how like the map itself was a puzzle.
That was good. Yeah.
I like how that came into it. But more importantly, my least favorite was, and this is not only my least favorite dungeon in this game, I think it's one of the worst dungeons in any Zelda game ever. And I think Eagle's Tower is fucking awful. Like, it's real bad. When I first played this game, like way back when it first came out in 2019.
2019.
So I wasn't playing with a guide or anything like that because you don't when you first play a game.
Yeah.
I did this time. It's only on this dungeon though. Because
Eagle's Tower was the only dungeon I used the guide on as well.
Because it's impossible to fucking follow.
Yes.
The whole like the pillars thing, it just feels stupid and really it wasn't for me. I just didn't like it. It frustrated me more than anything. When I started this game again for this podcast, I said I'll use the guide in the old world, fair enough, but for the dungeons I'm not going to use the guide because I've done them all before without a guide. It's completely fine. Apart from Eagle's Tower because I'm not spending another 2 hours trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think without a guide for Eagle's Tower, it's incredibly convoluted, and one slip up like makes you have to do like 10 minutes worth of stuff you've already done just to go and pick something up that you already had, and then hope to not put it in the wrong room or drop it down the wrong hole or go to the wrong area. The guide I feel like is almost essential for this if you want to do it within a reasonable amount of time and not just trial and error repeatedly for like an hour. Yeah, I do like the idea of the dungeon for sure.
Oh yeah,
I do. Yeah. I just feel like it punishes the player too much if you don't know exactly where you're going, and it becomes more of a chore rather than like a fun like figuring out thing. If I didn't have a guide, or if I didn't start using the guide partway through it, I legit probably would have been on that for like over an hour, and I would have just hated every second of it. Yeah. But the idea of it is cool though.
Oh yeah, I like the idea of dropping the tower down. And then
I just think it was done. I think it was done kind of poorly though.
Yeah,
in this game.
I feel like this is a dungeon that could have improved, like with a bit of TLC, something like that.
Well, God knows what that's like in the original game. That's probably terrifying in the original game.
I can imagine. I remember.
So we are. I've said this last podcast. We are getting to the point now where this feels kind of redundant because a lot of the items are the same.
So
we're not going to do favorite and least favorite item, but I am just going to shout. I'm going to shout out mine because I have thought of some, and feel free to do the same. So for me, my favorite item was the Hyrulean sword because when you get that and you pair it with the red tunic, fuck me, you feel like a god.
Yeah, you just one shot.
God, just everything just dies so quickly, and so. You get that from collecting 40 seashells throughout the land, and it feels like a really, really good, like a reward for collecting them. And then when there's actually so that's 40 out of 50 seashells. When you get 50, you just get a tablet for the create your own dungeon thing, which doesn't feel like a good reward for getting all of them.
What's the reward in the original game? Or do they just have less seashells? Okay. Alex, did you choose which mail did you choose? Did you choose the blue mail or the red mail?
Blue.
Right, that might be why your save is different. Do you remember your hearts?
No. Me and him had talked about this when he had the white outline around his heart.
Yeah, because when I got it, I figured I was like, that must be because Alex chose the armor this time, which is why his hearts have the thing over it.
Yeah,
I swear I chose blue last time.
Essentially, just doubles your hearts.
Yeah, I chose. I really like that dungeon, by the way. Shout out to that color dungeon. I did think it was quite fun.
That was added in.
Yeah, I was gonna shout out as being kind of useless. I didn't really enjoy it.
I just thought it was just a nice little, just like 20-minute, just like fun time, and I got a nice reward at the end of it. I thought it was quite fun.
It's nice to have it, I guess.
I also really like the puzzle for finding it. I felt big brain finding that. I didn't use the guide for that. I actually felt sick doing that. I thought like, I don't know. I just had a good time with that. Item wise, I don't know, man. They're all. I think this is generic as the items get. Yeah, in Zelda games.
The only thing is the magic rod, but that's just like the fire rod.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll shout out the worst. I think my worst one was the bow and arrow, because never in a Zelda game has a bow and arrow felt more useless, and you had to spend 980 rupees to buy it.
I used it quite a bit, to be honest.
I never used it. I didn't feel the need for it.
Especially since I got the early bow upgrade, because I accidentally said no. Yeah, I accidentally said no by complete accident, and then I panicked, and then it was like, I'll give you arrows instead, and I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, with the things that are cursing you with more arrows.
Yeah, but yeah, I found the bow quite fun. I honestly enjoyed using the bow. If anything, I thought like the magic rod. This has been an issue with quite a few Zelda games where it's the last item. I thought the magic rod was just kind of shit and pointless because
the magic rod was shit.
Had it for 10 minutes,
but the boomerang was good. And I think the boomerang could kill more enemies than
the boomerang was noted. Yeah, the boomerang felt overpowered at times. Yeah, I don't know why they made it so strong.
God knows, it's what I mean. So it just felt like, but you still needed to buy that bow and arrow for I think one puzzle in one dungeon. Yeah, but then you get marked as a thief. I don't want to be a thief.
Yeah, but
apparently the boomerang can beat the final boss in a single hit.
Can it? Oh, sure.
I mean, that's what I was reading on Zelda.
I mean, it could beat all the mini bosses in like 2 hits, from what I remember.
I know it was really good.
It was overpowered. Favorite item, shield, man. Fuck it, the shield was great. Just because I got to use it. Like, I'm so happy that I got to use the shield. I've never felt an experience like it in Zelda. Even in Ocarina of Time, I barely ever used the shield because, like, why, man? I don't care. I'll just whack shit. I don't need a shield.
You only use it when you need to get stuff off DK scrubs.
But in this game, man, it was like actual combat. I had to think about it. It was like hit the shield up, stun him, smack him. It was great stuff. I'd really enjoyed it. Nice. But I also want to say, I'm just gushing about this game. It's a good game. I'm also a huge fan. Because like I said, they changed a lot of stuff in this game from the original. And a lot of the stuff in the old Zelda games takes the piss with like secrets and stuff. Like, oh, there's a crack on the wall that you do not know is a crack, but there is a crack on the wall. In this game, it marks it all very clearly. And I don't care if some people are like, oh, it ruins the fun of the thing. No, it doesn't. A puzzle should be fair to the point where you can figure it out. You shouldn't have to just blindly guess over and over until you solve the puzzle. That's not a puzzle. That's just you guessing and brute forcing it. This game, I feel like, presented it all in a very, like I said, not in a way that holds your hand too much, but it doesn't make the game incredibly easy either. I think it was like a perfect balance of puzzle and just like a simple linear experience. And like, I don't know, they just did a really good job of it, man. I think it fixes a lot of these older games when they actually remake them like this and make it not a horrible time to play.
Yeah, it just like redefines it as a classic kind of thing.
Yeah, like I fully understand people liking the original ones and stuff, but I think people need to get over the idea that just because they played it in like 1992 and they had to use a actual like walkthrough like from the game to actually get through it doesn't make it better than just being able to figure it out yourself. Like, stupid secrets in those old Zelda games. There were a couple in this. I'd say the worst it got in this was the seashells, but once you got the...
Well, you get the tracker, don't you?
Yeah, once you get the tracker, it becomes very simple. And again, but it doesn't make it too easy, because it doesn't tell you exactly where it is. You still have to, like, figure out the puzzle in the general area. But I never think it got, like, to the point where it was like, I never would have figured this out if I was just doing it myself.
Yeah.
Which I think is very good. And I think... I don't know, it's just very nice that they took the time to actually make all that actually modern and not just remake it one for one and then just still make it annoying like it was back in the day, probably.
Yeah.
I do just appreciate that.
So before we got into favorite and least favorite boss, I just want to talk about. So we mentioned briefly the create your own dungeon game that Dampe runs. Did either of you do any of that?
I didn't do it because Alex warned me that it was very boring, and I don't
Very
like
boring.
building my own levels in games. I've never been a fan of it. I'm not good at it, so I don't usually touch that stuff.
So
I did it the first time I played.
yeah, I was going for all the heart pieces, so you have to do it. I didn't end up getting all the heart pieces at the end. Alex has got one more than me for some reason. I followed the guide exactly in the overworld, but I'm missing one heart piece, and I have no idea why.
No idea.
But anyway,
My
did
favorite
the majority of
item.
it.
Thanks for asking, Oliver.
Sorry, yes, favorite item, Alex.
Yeah.
I just thought we
Boomerang.
skipped over it because they were all just
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the main
Yeah,
item.
I just shout out to the boomerang because it's just
Hey,
overpowered,
great item.
and
Boomerang.
magic powered was a bit shit, but that's about it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Cool. So, favorite and least favorite boss. Alex, you can go first. There you go, mate.
Oh, thanks. I'd say the worst one is probably Facade, the face,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
all you do is throw a bomb at him, and that's it. That's literally all you do. It's very boring. A lot of the bosses are very, very boring.
Well, yeah, it's because they're all very simple. Like, they're not, none of them really offer up any challenge.
Hothead's pretty shit as well because literally all you do is stand still and just use the magic rod, and that's it.
Yeah.
Favorite though, probably Slime Eyes because I've never seen it before where you have to use the Pegasus boots to actually because you had to like split him in half, which I really liked.
That one pissed me off.
It took me ages.
No, the thing is, I realized instantly what I had to do, but the hit detection wasn't having it, so it like gaslit me into thinking that that's not what I was meant to do. And then I tried for like 20 minutes, looked up a guide, and it did exactly what I thought it was. I just wasn't center enough of the slime. So
the hitbox is very
I was pissed, bro. I was mad.
Gaslit you. Gaslighting's not real. Gaslighting's not real, Lewis. You're being crazy.
The game fucking gaslit me. Bro. I was mad.
Being crazy, man. Lewis, your favorite and least favorite boss?
I honestly, it's very similar with Alex. I thought Facade was very, very boring. It offered up nothing. But I'm going to say Slime Eel just because, again, this game it just gaslit me. I was like, right, to kill this enemy, I'm gonna have to shoot it with a hook shot in the mouth and do something. I did it a couple of times and it missed. So again, I also thought, right, that's not it. I went through my entire inventory, blah blah blah, and then I did figure it out. It was the hook shot, but that level is designed so poorly because the tail is always coming at you, whichever side you're on, and every time you go to try and grab it, you just get smacked by the tail, you lose a heart, you have to try again, and it's just really tedious, really long, and it's 100% luck. I'm sure there's some things you can do to like kill it quickly once you pull it out the first time. You can maybe like one phase it or something, but it is entirely luck reliant on whether or not that tail hits you. Because from what I understand, there was no way to block it or hit it away. You just have to not be stood in front of it when it comes at you. So I just found that to be incredibly annoying. My favorite, honestly, was probably the Nightmare boss. That was the toughest boss in the game.
Yeah.
I offered up the most challenge. It offered up the most variety, and I thought all of the forms were pretty fun. I enjoyed the entire Nightmare boss.
Yeah.
Was it just me because I had the blue mail that I didn't have any problems with the final boss?
Potentially, it does. You take a lot of hits.
It hits hard and hits fast.
I think I only lost like one line of my hearts, and that was it.
Yeah, no. So yeah, one line of hearts for you is two line of hearts for us.
Yeah.
I didn't die on it, but I came very, very close. Like very close.
I had a fairy as well, but it didn't.
No. So my favorite was thank you. My favorite was the genie. I like the idea. Like it's very rare. Like, the power bracelet actually is an item to kill a boss.
Yeah.
With. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
because they used power bracelet and they used the Pegasus boots, so they used like all the weapons.
I did think the game when it did it, actually, it only did it sometimes, which is the issue. It used the items in a very fun way to actually handle some of the combat situations. It only did it a couple of times, but when it did it, I thought it was really fun. And that's what I expect from most of the bosses in most of these games, but it never actually happens. 99% of the time, the items are useless. But I thought in this game, a couple of them did utilize the items very well. I will give the game credit for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. So my least favorite boss. I was gonna say Slime Eye, but I feel like I'm giving him a bit of a bad rap. Like the thing is, Slime Eye is he is pretty the easiest boss in the game by a damn mile. Like it is clever the way you beat him, but he is.
Easiest is Moldor.
Who's Global? Which one's that?
Moldorm.
Yeah, Moldor.
First one.
Well, and with Moldorm,
That's
you've at
easy.
least got to aim. But with Slime Eye, you hit the wall. You hit the wall. You hit the slime 3 times, and you break him apart.
Yeah, and you just hit him in the face. Yeah,
Like
true.
when I was doing the create your own dungeon things, you've got to put a boss at the end of each one. I always pick Slime Eye because I could do it in 20 seconds. Piss easy. Especially when you got your upgraded sword and everything. Each side of him takes 2 hits, and that's it, he's dead. But thinking about it, I think Slime Eel, what Lewis picked, is probably the worst one. Like you say, it is very tedious.
Yeah, and it's just really luck dependent. It's not skill.
No.
You just have to hope that it doesn't smack you in the face when you grab it.
No. Agreed. So is there anything else either of you want to say about Link's Awakening before we wrap up?
Rover was my favorite mini boss because I liked that he threw his ball and then you picked it up and he ran away.
That was pretty funny too.
I enjoyed that as a mini boss.
It's like, what did he expect to happen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's just the idea of literally just using his weapon against him. And go, oh shit! Oh fuck! And I hated the Dodongo snakes. They can suck my ass. They were shit.
They were so annoying.
Yeah, they
Yes,
suck.
which dungeon was it? Was it Turtle Rock where you had
where you had to throw it over the edge, yes.
You had to throw it over the edge when you were
it took me like 10 minutes.
Oh my god. So I already killed them at the bottom, and then the chest spawned at the top. I was like, buzzing, I'll go up there, and then the chest despawned.
The thing is, they're not a boss because they're just kind of just chilling, doing their own thing, aren't they? They're not exactly attacking you. They're just wandering around, and you're just murdering them for no reason by making them eat explosives.
They reject half the time when you throw it out.
It was like shake the editor. It was like, all right, fuck off. Right. Anyway, we'll wrap it up there. So the next game we'll be playing for Hyrulean Chronicles is A Link Between Worlds, and that should be going up on the channel on or around the 9th of September. For the rest of this month, we have our Gamescom opening night reactions coming out on the 24th of August. They should be up shortly after the actual presentation. And our video game book club review of Tulip will be coming out on the 26th. Until next time, we shall see you later.
Bye.
Bye.